Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know how we love getting lost in a good topic, and, well, today's journey is taking us into the expansive world of the Forgotten Realms,
A classic for a reason.
right? Dragons, magic, adventure. We're talking D&D at its finest. And it seems like you all agree because you've sent us a mountain of material on it.
Someone's been doing their homework.
Seriously. We're talking a whole stack of articles by Paul Bellow, who, from the looks of it, is a bit of a realms aficionado. But it also tells me you're looking for, like, the ultimate cheat sheet to this sprawling fantasy world.
Which makes sense. I mean, diving into the Forgotten Realms without a guide is, well, it's a bit like navigating the Underdark with a faulty torch. Not exactly a recipe for success.
That's a terrifyingly accurate analogy. But you're right, the sheer amount of lore in the Forgotten Realms can be overwhelming. Where do you even start?
Well, luckily, these articles offer a fantastic starting point, each tackling a different facet.
Yeah, you've got one that's all about the novels, and let me tell you, there are a lot of them, even breaking down some suggested reading orders.
Essential, if you ask me.
Absolutely. Then there's another one that dives into the nitty-gritty of the most powerful characters, like, who are the real movers and shakers in the realms?
Always a good question to ask.
Right. And then, of course, we've got to talk about the last article, which unpacks the history, the lore, even the video games set in this world.
Talk about a deep dive.
I know, right? It feels like we're about to crack open a treasure chest overflowing with Forgotten Realms goodies. So where do we even begin with all of this?
Honestly, I always think the novels are the most accessible entry point for a lot of people. They kind of offer that direct path into the world, let you really experience its wonders firsthand.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
And speaking of paths, that first article lays out some seriously handy-dandy reading lists, which is perfect for anyone feeling a little lost in the, let's be real, massive library of Forgotten Realms novels.
It can definitely get overwhelming.
No kidding. But, it seems like a lot of folks start their journey with a certain Drill Ranger.
Ah, Drizzt. Can't go wrong with a little Drizzt Do'Urden.
Right. But I'm curious, what is it about his story that resonates with so many readers, do you think?
I think it's that whole struggle against his inherent nature. He's this drow who defies the stereotype, choosing a path of light in a world that's, well, let's face it, pretty steeped in darkness.
It's true. He's a beacon of hope in a world that often feels, well, kind of bleak.
Exactly. And that makes him such a compelling character to follow.
I totally agree. And for anyone jumping into Drizzt's story for the first time, the article suggests starting with the Dark Elf trilogy. Get that good origin story. See the darkness he escaped to forge his own path.
Solid advice. That trilogy really sets the stage for his character arc.
Totally. And from there, it's a smooth transition into the Icewind Dale trilogy, which is where, things really get going. Drizzt finds a real home, forges those deep bonds with his companions. It's got it all. Heart, humor, epic battles.
Classic fantasy storytelling at its finest.
You're speaking my language. It's that perfect blend of character-driven narrative and those high fantasy adventures we all crave.
Absolutely.
But, Drizzt's adventures aren't confined to just the pages of those novels, are they?
Oh, not at all. We'll definitely circle back to his video game appearances a bit later, but for now.
We've got to talk about the big leagues. We're talking about the truly awe-inspiring figures who could make even Drizzt tremble in his boots.
Now we're getting to the good stuff.
Right. And speaking of powerful beings, we have to mention the Dalekur Lords. These ancient beings are the stuff of nightmares, locked away for eons to protect the world from their chaotic influence.
They make even the fiercest red dragon look like a house cat.
Okay, that's terrifying. It's like something out of a Lovecraftian horror story, only with more magic and probably less tentacle-faced monsters.
Well, I wouldn't rule those out entirely in the Forgotten Realms. But you're right. The Dalekur Lords represent this primal force of chaos, the kind that could unravel, well, pretty much everything.
See, this is why we need heroes like Drizzt. But while we're on the topic of power, we can't forget Elminster.
Ah, Elminster the Sage, a figure shrouded in more mystery than a misty swamp and whispered about in hushed tones from Waterdeep to Candlekeep.
He's like that wise old mentor figure you meet in a tavern, gives you some cryptic advice, then disappears in a puff of smoke, leaving you to wonder if you've just met a legend or a really good illusionist.
There are rumors, of course, about his true nature. Some whisper he was once just a simple shepherd, others that he's a chosen servant of Mystra herself. But the truth, well, that's a secret Elminster guards closely.
Which makes him all the more intriguing. But it does make you wonder, is it better to have overwhelming power or the wisdom to wield it subtly? A question for the ages.
Indeed. But not all power in the Forgotten Realms resides in these singular, larger-than-life figures, does it? The article mentions something about the Harpers, a more clandestine force operating in the shadows.
Oh yeah, the Harpers. They're like that group you go to when you need something done quietly, effectively, and with a touch of mystery. They're like the James Bonds of the Forgotten Realms, only instead of martinis, they'd probably prefer a pint of mead and a good lute ballad.
A surprisingly accurate description. They're all about balance. Opposing tyranny, safeguarding the realms from threats both obvious and those lurking in the shadows.
See, this is what I love about the Forgotten Realms. Just when you think you've got a handle on things, bam! There's another layer of intrigue. It's a world that constantly keeps you guessing. But we've gotten a bit ahead of ourselves, haven't we? We still have to talk about the world itself. The history, the lore, all those juicy details that make this setting so captivating.
You're right, we can't forget about the bigger picture. And that's where things get even more interesting. Because you see, the Forgotten Realms wasn't always a D&D setting. It started as the brainchild of one Ed Greenwood, a personal project of sorts.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me that this sprawling world filled with iconic characters, epic tales, it all started as someone's passion project.
It's true. Goes to show you the power of imagination, right?
That is incredible. From a personal project to a global phenomenon. Talk about a success story. But you know what I love about it? It just proves that the best stories often come from the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. And that's part of what makes diving into the Forgotten Realms so rewarding. It's this rich tapestry of imagination, passion, and, well, a whole lot of creativity.
Well said. But I think it's time we shift gears a bit, don't you?
I'm with you.
We've covered some seriously powerful characters and even uncovered the humble beginnings of this expansive setting, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
We've got a lot more ground to cover.
We do. But before we get totally lost in the annals of history and the pixelated landscapes of Forgotten Realms video games, let's take a step back. Regroup a little.
Sounds like a plan.
Perfect. We'll be back in a flash to delve even deeper into the Forgotten Realms. All right, so we're back, ready to delve deeper into this world of the Forgotten Realms.
Deeper we go.
Right. And I think it's a good time to, zoom out for a sec. Remind ourselves why any of this even matters.
The age-old question. Why should we care?
Exactly. Because, let's be real, we could be talking about a million other things, right? Real-world stuff, important stuff. So what is it about this world, this Forgotten Realms, that pulls us in? What makes it worth exploring?
It's a good question. And honestly, I think a big part of it is just the pure power of storytelling. The Forgotten Realms, at its heart, it's an escape.
An escape from reality.
In a way, yeah. It's a chance to step into this world where magic is real, where ancient prophecies come to life, where, you've got heroes battling literal dragons. It's that sense of wonder that I think we all crave a little bit of.
I feel that. Sometimes you just need a break from the everyday grind,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's more than just escapism, right? The Forgotten Realms, it also gives us this framework for exploring some pretty complex themes. Like take Drist, for example. His story isn't just about a drow with a cool sword. It's about prejudice, about defying expectations, about finding your own way when the world tries to put you in a box.
It's a story that resonates, for sure. And I think that's the beauty of good fantasy, right? It uses these fantastical elements to tap into something deeper, something universal.
Exactly. And then you've got the sheer depth of it all. The Forgotten Realms isn't just a backdrop. It's a living, breathing world. Its own history, its own cultures, religions, political systems. I mean, we could spend hours just unpacking the intricacies of their magic system alone.
Don't tempt me. But you're right. It's that attention to detail that makes it feel so real, so lived in. Like you could step right into a Forgotten Realms novel and not feel totally out of place.
Well, minus the occasional dragon attack, maybe.
Right. Good point. Always a catch. But, speaking of stepping into the world, we have to talk about the video games. For a lot of people, that's their entry point into the Forgotten Realms, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the games offer this whole other way to experience the world.
Totally. I mean, I don't know about you, but I spent countless hours with those old gold box games.
Classic.
Right. Sure, the graphics were a little rough around the edges, but man, did those games capture your imagination.
They really paved the way for the more modern RPGs we love today.
Oh, 100%. And speaking of modern RPGs, we've got to give a shout out to the Baldur's Gate series.
Revolutionary, really.
They took everything that was great about those classic RPGs and just, cranked it up to 11. The story, the characters, the world building, Chef's kiss.
Yeah, really capture the essence of the Forgotten Realms, didn't they?
Completely. And you know what else I loved? That infinity engine they used, those pre-rendered backgrounds, that isometric perspective. It was like stepping into a living, breathing painting.
Speaking of stepping into a painting, did you ever play Forgotten Realms? Demon Stone?
Oh, how could I forget? Talk about a wild ride. R.A. Salvatore himself wrote that one.
He did, and it really showed, didn't it?
Absolutely. It had this great blend of classic fantasy and, like, Hollywood action. Plus, you had Patrick Stewart voicing one of the main characters. I mean, come on.
It was definitely a departure from the traditional D&D formula.
It was. But, you know, that's the thing about the Forgotten Realms, right? It's versatile. It can be adapted to different genres, different styles, and it still works. It's all about capturing that core essence of adventure, of wonder.
Well said. It's a world that's constantly evolving, always finding new ways to surprise and delight us.
Which, when you think about it, is kind of amazing. I mean, this whole world, this universe of stories and characters, it all started with one guy's imagination.
It's a testament to the power of creativity.
It really is. And that's something I think we can all draw inspiration from. Whether you're a writer, an artist, a game designer, whatever, it just goes to show you that the best ideas often come from the most unexpected places.
And the best ideas, once shared, they take on a life of their own.
So true. And the Forgotten Realms is a perfect example of that. It's this collaborative world shaped by countless creators and fans over the years.
It's a living, breathing testament to the power of shared imagination.
Beautifully said. But now I'm itching to get into the history of it all. We've talked about the characters, the stories, the games, but what about the events that shaped this world?
The history that underpins it all.
Exactly. Because, like any good story, it's always best to start at the beginning. What do you say?
A journey through time awaits.
Talk about a long and winding road, huh? We're about to take a trip through time, Forgotten Realms style. Because we've got to talk history.
Oh, yeah. It's not just about the dragons and the magic, right? There's a whole lot of history underpinning it all. And let me tell you, the Forgotten Realms does history right.
It's not just some dry timeline either, is it? We're talking about these distinct eras, each with its own flavor, its own power struggles, its own legends. Where do you even start with all of that?
Well, you've got to start at the beginning, right? And in the Forgotten Realms, the beginning was, well, chaotic, to say the least. We're talking about the Days of Thunder, when the very land masses themselves were being formed.
Talk about setting the stage. I can only imagine the stories from that era. But then you jump forward, and you've got the rise of these ancient empires during the first day. Flowering magic is flowing, intrigues in the air. It's a whole different ballgame.
And just when you think you've got a handle on things, bam! You've got the time of troubles.
Yeah.
Talk about a wild ride, gods walking among mortals, destinies hanging in the balance.
It's like someone hit the cosmic reset button, right? And these events, they weren't just isolated incidents. They had ripple effects, shaping the world for centuries to come.
Exactly. That's what makes exploring the history of the Forgotten Realms so fascinating. It's like piecing together a puzzle, seeing how these past events connect to the world we see in the novels and the games. It's all connected. I love that. Like those little aha moments you get when you realize that a seemingly insignificant event from centuries ago is the reason that mischievous gnome tried to sell you that cursed amulet.
Exactly. It's all about those connections, seeing how the past informs the present, and it's everywhere in the realms, even in the video games. I mean, think about it, the Baldur's Gate series. It takes place during the era of upheaval, a time of huge political change, right?
Which makes total sense when you consider the plot of the game. You've got warring factions, shadowy organizations pulling the strings. It's like you're playing through a pivotal moment in history.
And your choices, they have weight. You're not just experiencing the story, you're shaping it, becoming a part of that historical tapestry. Okay, now that is cool, but I can also see how some folks might be feeling a little overwhelmed at this point. It's a lot to take in, right?
Right.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to dive into the history of the realms but doesn't know where to begin?
Don't try to memorize everything. That's a surefire way to suck the fun out of it. Instead, just follow your curiosity. Are you fascinated by a particular character, an event? Start there.
I love that. So it's like choosing your own adventure, but through history.
Precisely. You might start with Drist's adventures, but then find yourself drawn to the ancient empire of Netheril, or maybe the early days of the Harpers. Who knows where your curiosity will lead you?
That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
There are endless possibilities for exploration and discovery.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe you'll even be inspired to create your own stories set in this rich and vibrant world.
Now, wouldn't that be something? To add your own thread, to this incredible tapestry. Because at the end of the day, that's what the Forgotten Realms is all about, isn't it? It's about imagination, about adventure, about finding that sense of wonder that we all crave.
Beautifully said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Forgotten Realms, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
Don't be afraid to get lost in it all. Dive into the lore, explore the history, and most importantly, let your imagination run wild.
The Forgotten Realms is more than just a setting. It's a playground for the imagination.
And we're all invited to play.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap things up for today. We've journeyed through the novels, met legendary heroes and villains, uncovered ancient histories, and even battled a few digital dragons along the way.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. But until next time, keep exploring, keep imagining, and may your rolls always be in your favor.